world that did not tune in to the Alliance Vlog podcast. Shame on you!
Shame on you. My name is Ella Indy, and I'm one half of the NWA Women's World Tag Team Champion.
And I'm Kinsey Page, the other half of the NWA World Women's Tag Team Champion.
And you better go listen to the Alliance Vlog, what is it called again?
Podcast, period.
Or you're ugly. Period. Power approved. Alright.
What is up? Hey, we're doing this thing, right? What's going on, everybody? I'm kind of excited. I'm doing something different here. This is the Alliance guy, JCal, and we're gonna go. Well, we are live right now. You're here with me. We're live. We're doing it live, fellas. So if you're here, thanks for joining us. All right, so we're gonna get going here momentarily. So what I'm doing is, first of all, TikTok Live has this new option where you could go through a studio. We're using the OBS setup similar to the old setup we used to have. So I apologize for it not being like 100% awesome and great, but it's the best that I could do with what I have in terms of running my live stream this way. Again, this is a new territory for me. I haven't done it this way in the past, so this is new. So if you like it, make sure you like it, thumbs up, all that good stuff. But yeah, I'm mostly doing this to try to... First of all, you have to use this application or you lose the application. So I'm here to make sure that I will be on here for the next 20 minutes or so. What's up, Mad? Welcome back. But I am specifically talking for like a podcast that I'm also recording. So this is kind of a 2-for for me, because I'm going to save this video and then it's going to go on our Spotify, and that goes out to our YouTube and all that other stuff. So I am going to be talking predominantly about the National Wrestling Alliance. I'm going to be talking about the World's Heavyweight Champion, EC3. And I'm going to get going with that in just about a few minutes. But what's up, Mad? Everyone else in the chat, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for popping in. I do appreciate you being here. And without any further ado, let's talk a little bit about the NWA. Let's talk about the National Wrestling Alliance. My name is JCal, and each and every week I try to find something new to talk about with you, my hashtag NWA fam. And today, well, because it's the weekend. No, actually, I'm blowing the intro, if you will. No, it's been a very long time since the NWA has featured its World's Heavyweight Champion in Southern California. Mad, sit back, listen. I don't. I'm not trying to be egotistical or anything, but I have a wealth of NWA knowledge, and I'd love to share it with anyone who'd like to hear about it. But the history that the NWA has had here in the Southern California dates back to the Grand Olympic Auditorium in NWA Los Angeles. I'll get to a little bit of that stuff in a minute, but I do have like kind of an open I want to use. And because that'll make less editing for later, we'll go ahead and do it now. So, this Sunday, June 9th, the National Wrestling Alliance sends its World's Heavyweight Champion, EC3, back to Southern California. And the reason why that's so significant is because it has been 1,360 days since a NWA World's Heavyweight Champion has defended in the Southern California area. Now, to kind of put this in place, the NWA, since the Lightning One era, since William Patrick Corgan purchased the NWA, has not seen a lot of time here in Southern California, with the exception of when Nick Aldis was World's Heavyweight Champion. Now, Nick Aldis is a 2-time NWA World's Heavyweight Champion. You might also see that gentleman as the general manager on SmackDown. But Nick Aldis, before he became an executive for the WWE program, he was actually a traveling World's Heavyweight Champion, having taken the title to Australia, to China, to the UK, to Canada, and more specifically, all around the United States, with an emphasis in Southern California, having defended that title for Championship Wrestling from Hollywood and their pay-per-view series Primetime Live. Now, in that short amount of time that Nick Aldis was World Heavyweight Champion, he defended the title roughly about, I want to say like 5 times in SoCal. He defended against... well, actually, I take that back. He had the title... defended it 3 times when he was in Southern California. The first time was against James Ellsworth. Yes, that James Ellsworth of the WWE fame. And that was actually, at the time, one of the most viewed videos of the NWA's YouTube channel in history. In fact, it had well over 1 million views, and most of those happened live, as that match was presented live on YouTube, direct from Port Hueneme, where Championship Wrestling from Hollywood used to tape. That matchup was set up almost as a gateway match into what would become the Aldis Crusade. Now, the Aldis Crusade would, again, touch down all over the United States, with stops in Australia, stops in China, and et cetera, et cetera. The next person that Nick Aldis would defend the title against was Bad Dude Tito. Now, Bad Dude Tito, if you're a fan of MLW, just won their open weight championship. So it's... and at the time when Bad Dude Tito was with Championship Wrestling, he's still currently one half of the United Wrestling Network Tag Team Champions. At the time, he was the United Wrestling Network Heritage Champion. So that was pretty cool when we had Nick Aldis out here for those title defenses. And even before those two, he actually had challenged the previous champion, Tim Storm, who made his debut in Southern California as world champion with Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. So there was like a couple of times where those titles, the title had been defended. And of course, the last time that the title was defended here in Southern California, Nick Aldis defended the title against Mike Bennett, and what would have been the last 10 pounds of gold series that the NWA did with Nick Aldis was setting up that match that aired on pay-per-view on Triller. And that one was much maligned with a lot of technical issues. And that title defense literally became the downfall in the relationship between Nick Aldis, Dave Marquez, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, and the National Wrestling Alliance. There was obviously a lot of miscommunication and some, technical snafus, and it messed up what would have been a really great night. Now, if you guys don't remember that, check this out. I have some cool stuff to show you. We actually have a little bit of the video. I think I can pull it up right here. The closing moments where Nick Aldis putting Mike Bennett in the sharpshooter with Marie Kanellis ringside. And yeah, I am recording a podcast about the NWA. And as you can see, Nick Aldis has Mike Bennett in the sharpshooter. This will probably be edited out for the podcast. So yeah, that was the real thing. That did happen. If I can figure out how to turn that off. Still learning this. Yeah, and that happened back in 2015. That was during the global worldwide pandemic. And yours truly was actually allowed to be in the building that day following some COVID testing. And I was following protocol with wearing my mask the entire time. But it was pretty cool that that match was happening at a time when there wasn't a lot of wrestling going on, and for things to have spiraled out of control where the relationship between both parties, being Championship Wrestling from Hollywood and the NWA, kind of came to a close following that matchup. There were several more NWA title matches that were featured on that series, the Primetime Live pay-per-view series that was on Triller, but again, those did not... That relationship did not continue after 2021. And it's been a long time. Like I said, over 1,300 days since we've seen the World's Heavyweight title in Southern California. Now, earlier this year, we did have EC3 defend the title in Northern California, that's still pretty significant, and the fact that he defended in California is a big deal. But I want to make sure that you guys understand how and why Southern California was so important to the NWA, dating back to the old territory days, the real territory days, and I'm talking about where each office kind of represented the National Wrestling Alliance. In Los Angeles, there was the LaBelle family, Eileen Eaton. The first female NWA promoter, was running Los Angeles both with the wrestling and boxing. And the NWA Worlds Heavyweight Champion often frequented the territory, with Lou Thez defending the title out here. Also guys like Dory Funk Jr., Gene Kiniski, Terry Funk, Jack Briscoe. We had the 10 pounds of gold constantly. I shouldn't say 10 pounds of gold, but I mean more the NWA Worlds Heavyweight Championship was in the area frequently and often, even up until the late 80s when Jim Crockett Promotions was still sending Ric Flair to defend the 10 pounds of gold here in Los Angeles at the Forum, the Fabulous Forum as they called it back in those days, in Inglewood, California. Now, there was a hiatus from the 10 pounds of gold being defended in Southern California. Obviously, and the NWA and its relationship to territories was very small in that time between like 1993 and like 2008. And there wasn't a lot of territories in the NWA, let alone in Southern California. We did have Dan the Beast Severin, who was World's Heavyweight Champion, and he didn't defend the title, but he was showcased as World's Heavyweight Champion at the World Peace Festival that happened, I believe that was in '94, and where he wrestled in a match with where he was wearing the 10 pounds of gold, teaming with New Japan founder Antonio Inoki. And so that was a really cool moment for a lot of the NWA fans to see Dan Severn with that belt. But again, that the title had kind of been on hiatus for the National Wrestling Alliance here in Southern California. We didn't see that title being defended. In fact, the first time that the World's Heavyweight Championship was defended in Southern California in the modern era, you have to go all the way back to 2005. With a upstart wrestling promotion called Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. You may have heard of them. They're kind of a big deal. And they had the NWA World Champion, who at the time was, AJ Styles. It was his second run as World's Heavyweight Champion, and he defended the 10 pounds of gold against James Gibson at Guitarmageddon in Los Angeles. It was a big moment for the NWA, and although the territories were still kind of beleaguered, Impact was still very much a part of the NWA relationship, and they had control over that World's Heavyweight title. So when AJ Styles had taken the title and defended it in Combat Zone Wrestling in Philadelphia or internationally in South Korea, these were big moments for the NWA, big moments for Impact TNA Wrestling, but there was a territory system, but they weren't able to take advantage of using the World's Heavyweight Champion. And that all changed in 2007 when the NWA did take the titles back from TNA Wrestling, and they ended the 5-year relationship that they had with TNA Wrestling. Now, this was kind of a big deal because it was the first time in a very, very long time that the NWA was able to control its own destiny. And that was spearheaded by promotions in Georgia, which would be like Wildside Wrestling, which later would become... oh man, why am I forgetting the name of it? Wildside became Anarchy. So you had Anarchy in Georgia. You had Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. At the time, they were going by the moniker of NWA Pro Wrestling here on the West Coast in Southern California. And you had a lot of other members, and it was kind of a split decision to take the titles back, but at the time, and we're talking about in 2007, David Marquez and the NWA Pro Wrestling group out here in Southern California had started touring and doing shows all across the Southwest and all the way far as east as Florida. They were doing smaller arena shows in Florida in Texas, in Arizona, of course in California, Nevada, and even up as far north as British Columbia. So they were covering some ground, and it was important to have that NWA Worlds Heavyweight Championship back under their control. And once that title did get vacated by TNA Wrestling, the last TNA wrestler to hold the 10 pounds of gold was Christian Cage. He was stripped of the title before that pay-per-view where he had lost to Kurt Angle. That would set up a tournament reclaiming the Gold Series, where tournament matches took place all over the United States and even in some matches spilled into Canada. But the finals of that would be in Bayman, Puerto Rico on September the 2nd, 2007, where Scrap Iron Adam Pearce, who is now the general manager on Raw, he would win the title by defeating Brent Albright, and Brian Danielson, who had been injured earlier in the tournament, served as the referee, who was wearing an eye patch, which is kind of funny when you think about a role of a referee. This would lead to the title having a very prominent role in Southern California for the next, roughly 10 years. Well, I shouldn't say 10 years, about 5 years. So you would have Adam Pearce defending in the myriad of affiliates. This was before the term territories had returned to the NWA. Back then you had members, associates, and affiliates. Affiliates were basically like the territories of the members. Dave Marquez was the promoter of record in California, specifically Southern California, and his affiliates were the Alternative Wrestling Show, which had events in Rowland Heights and the City of Industry. You had SoCal Pro, who had events in Oceanside and Vista, more towards San Diego. You had Empire Wrestling Federation that had their events in the Inland Empire, Riverside County, San Bernardino County, and then NWA Wrestling, NWA Pro events, which would happen in Hollywood. And I can't forget Orange County. They also have Mach 1 Wrestling. So at that time, on these events, you would see the World's Heavyweight Champion defend quite frequently. Adam Pearce, in his first run, again would defend against Little Cholo, Baby Slim, Alcatraz, SoCal Crazy, Ricky Mandel, and then the titles would change hands. Blue Demon Jr. would become champion. Blue Demon Jr. would defend against Oliver John, Jason Redondo, Joey Ryan. More title matches that Adam Pearce again had was against like Scorpio Sky, you know him from AEW, Shane Haste of TMDK from New Japan. So there was a lot of activity with the 10 pounds of gold. Of course, the champion would go from Adam Pearce to Brent Albright. Brent Albright back to Adam Pearce. Adam Pearce would lose the title in Mexico City to Blue Demon Jr. Blue Demon Jr. would hold that title for a significant amount of time before he would lose it back to Adam Pearce. Pearce's third reign in Southern California saw mostly title defenses would be on television. In Santa Ana for the Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, where he reigned champion for nearly a year until losing the title to Boom Boom Colt Cabana. Again, politics played a major role in what was happening in the NWA at that time. Colt Cabana lost the title to the Sheik in Florida as part of a promised title reign to the Sheik, which kept Colt Cabana's reign very, very short. The Sheik was later stripped of the title for failing to agree to title defenses for the NWA. Adam Pearce would regain the title for a fourth time, which would set up the best of 7 series with Colt Boom Boom Cabana for the 10 pounds of gold. And that's where the title would kind of trade hands back and forth, whether it be in Southern California or across the U.S. as part of that 7 Levels of Hate series. Eventually, the 10 pounds of gold would go on hiatus from Southern California when the existing NWA ownership got enthralled into a lawsuit with some other members of the NWA. It's basically a civil war where once the National Wrestling Alliance was sued, instead of really fighting the case, and there's a lot of details I'm leaving out. I'm not an attorney. This isn't legal advice. It prevented the NWA from existing as it was before. So eventually what would happen is the NWA would essentially, in lieu of settling for cash or something else, they gave up the rights and the trademarks to the NWA to a new ownership group, which would settle the lawsuit. That would be the end of the pro wrestling organization, and it would introduce the International Wrestling Corporation under Bruce Tharpe. And although Bruce Tharpe did a lot of interesting things for the NWA, ultimately his inability to run the franchise, to run the brand, this historic 70-year brand, led to him selling the company in its entirety to the lead singer of Smashing Pumpkins, and that's Billy Corgan, which kind of brings us all back to where we started here with Tim Storm bringing the 10 pounds of gold to Championship Wrestling from Hollywood after 5 years absence. And then after he would lose the title to Nick Aldis, Aldis would similarly use the vessel that is Championship Wrestling from Hollywood to get himself out there, expose the NWA brand and the 10 pounds of gold. And of course, Nick Aldis's reign would end as world champion at All In, where he would lose the title to Cody Rhodes. Cody never actually defended the title here in Southern California, but again, did showcase the title multiple times, one with Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, and the second time with New Japan Strong when he won the IWGP US title. He was also flanked with the 10 pounds of gold. And Aldis would eventually regain the title at the NWA 70th anniversary show, leading up to NWA Power, the TV show. And at that point, the global pandemic really put a pause on everything that the NWA was doing. Primetime Live was reignited to feature these NWA champions and bring wrestling back during the pandemic, which for a lot of independent wrestling fans, everything just kind of stopped. So with Nick Aldis then having that title again and defending it on the show, the technical snafus, a lot of the production, missteps led to a lot of hostility between, David Marquez and Nick Aldis specifically, which essentially ended the relationship between the NWA and Championship Wrestling, the United Wrestling Network group. And so we haven't seen the World's Heavyweight title here in Southern California since, and that all changes this weekend when our friends over at Valley Wrestling Connection have brought in EC3. We'll be bringing in EC3 as part of their festivities that are happening this weekend. And it's pretty exciting when you think about it, because again, it's been such a long time since the NWA Worlds Heavyweight Championship has been here in California, and at various points it had been a very significant title in this region. So Valley Wrestling Connection is doing a big event this weekend in Lake Elsinore. For those of you who are in Southern California, I highly recommend checking it out. They are bringing in a lot of stars out to this show this weekend, including former NWA World Tag Team Champion Mecha Wolf. Also in action is Rey Horas from Tijuana. We're also going to see Juventud Guerrera, which, interestingly enough, he is the NWA Crossfire Champion. Brian Kendrick will be in action, former WWE Cruiserweight Champion, former WWE World Heavyweight Champion, depending on who you ask. And this is all part of their Family Fun Fest, and they're doing 4 shows over 3 days. And again, bringing EC3 into the fold to defend the title, I think, is very, very extraordinary, and I'm excited to be there. I will be there at the show. I'll be taking pictures, so you're going to want to You want to stay tuned to what we're doing here at the Alliance blog, whether it be through our TikTok channel, our YouTube channel, or our social media presence on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We'll be posting pictures and photos from that event. And again, this is coming off the backs of EC3, who has done everything we've wanted as a world's champion. He has taken that belt to new heights. Just last week, he was in Japan for All Japan Pro Wrestling, defending the title, the first time that a NWA World Champion has defended in All Japan since 1989. We're also going to have, we also had EC3 defending the title, I believe, next weekend in Australia. So EC3 as World's Heavyweight Champion has literally been defending the title in the United States, This will be his first time in Southern California, but has defended in Northern California and in New York and in New Jersey and in Vermont and really all over the place. Florida, Alabama, Nashville, I guess I should say Tennessee, huh? But really all over the place, and even in the United Kingdom. Now he's able to check off Australia. He's able to check off Southern California. And I don't see this slowing down anytime soon. He also returned to Tennessee last weekend as part of the NWA television taping out there at the return of the territories. And then even just a few weeks ago, I did see the World's Heavyweight Champion defend in Dallas against Sam Adonis as part of the Crockett Cup. So you got to be very excited about what EC3 has done as World's Heavyweight Champion, and I really think that's a pretty cool thing. So thanks for listening, and I guess we'll touch bases later. And yeah, thank you guys for hanging out in the chat with me. Hope you enjoyed it, and until next time, we'll see you at the matches. Thanks for joining the stream. This has been a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com. We genuinely appreciate your support. Would you consider subscribing so you'll never miss a future episode? I'd also like to remind you we do a live stream every Tuesday at 5 p.m. before NWA Power. You can find us on social media at The Alliance Blog. And until next time, we are The Alliance.